Gene Hackman and his wife Betsy Arakawa were found dead in their Santa Fe home on February 26, 2025. Their deaths just days apart sparked an immediate investigation due to the unusual circumstances. Now, the medical examiners determined and revealed to the FBI was shocking enough that it left Gene Hackman's family trembling at the news. Once you hear what the FBI officially confirmed, it'll all make sense why his family is absolutely shaken to their core. So before you go anywhere, brace yourself because this story is about to take a turn that no one saw coming. Initial discovery shocks family. Roland Lobegay and Jesse Kessler have been taking care of the Hackman residence for over 16 years. They knew every inch of the property like the back of their hands, from the creaky wooden gate, the way the wind always howled through the trees at night, and how the house smelled faintly of cedar and old books. So when they arrived that Wednesday, February 26th, for their routine maintenance check and saw the front door wide open, something inside them twisted with unease. It was the kind of gut feeling you can't explain, but you just know something is wrong. They hesitated for a second, looking at each other, then stepped forward cautiously. It was quiet. Too quiet. No sound of the TV murmuring in the background. No faint chatter or music playing from inside the house. Just an eerie stillness that made the hair on the back of their necks stand up. They knocked. Called out. Nothing. And that's when they peered through the windows. The subdivision's caretaker wasted no time calling 911. His voice shook as he tried to explain what he was looking at. "Please send somebody really quick," he kept saying, urgency dripping from every word. He didn't know exactly what had happened inside that house, but what he did know was that it wasn't good. Gene Hackman spent decades bringing powerful characters to life on screen, but nothing could have prepared his family for the real-life horror they're facing now. The FBI has just released an official report on his cause of death, and the findings are enough to make anyone's blood run cold. Was it something sinister? A hidden truth buried beneath years of Hollywood glamour? Or is there a shocking twist no one saw coming? You won't believe the details that have surfaced, so stick around, because the most unsettling revelation comes at the very end. He could see her, Arakawa, lying motionless on the floor. Was she breathing? Was she just unconscious? He didn't know. All he knew was that he needed help, and he needed it fast. His voice cracked with emotion as he continued speaking with the dispatcher, his mind racing with every worst-case scenario imaginable. When emergency responders finally arrived, they were met with a grim scene, one that sent a cold chill down their spines. Arakawa was in the bathroom, lying on her right side, a space heater just inches from her head. The counter was a mess, pills scattered everywhere, an open bottle sitting ominously among them. The sight of it all painted a tragic picture. Had she collapsed suddenly? Had she been trying to reach for her medication? So many questions, but no immediate answers. And then, the discovery that made everything even more unsettling. Another body. Hackman was in the mudroom near the kitchen, in a similar state. The house, once filled with warmth and life, had now become something else entirely, silent, eerie, lifeless. But the strange part, 2 of their 3 dogs were still alive and seemed perfectly healthy. Yet their 12-year-old Australian Kelpie mix, Zina, wasn't as lucky. She lay dead just a few feet from Arakawa, and no one could say why. Was it natural causes? Something else? It was yet another puzzle piece in a case that was already filled with way too many unsettling details. When Santa Fe County Sheriff Adam Mendoza got involved, it was clear this wasn't going to be a simple case. "It's not normal to find 2 people deceased in the residence," he admitted. And he was right. Something about this whole thing didn't sit right. What are the chances of 2 people dying around the same time in the same house, with no clear signs of foul play? It was bizarre to say the least. Authorities wasted no time securing a search warrant. If something sinister had happened in that house, they weren't going to leave any stone unturned. They combed through every room, listing every medication they found, from blood pressure pills, thyroid medicine, common pain relievers. Could one of these have played a role in what happened? Then came another unsettling realization. The maintenance workers hadn't seen the couple in about 2 weeks. And when they checked security footage, the last time Arakawa was seen on camera was February 11th. That meant their bodies had been in that house for days, maybe even weeks, before anyone found them. The sheer thought of it sent a shudder through everyone who heard the case. Hackman's daughter, overcome with grief, could barely speak when authorities called her. She was sobbing, unable to even process the horror of what had happened. Joey Padilla from Santa Fe Tales boarding facility was there during the call, witnessing firsthand just how much pain this family was going through. As investigators tried to piece together the timeline, they brought in the Santa Fe Fire Department and the New Mexico Gas Company to check every system in the house. Was there a gas leak? A carbon monoxide issue? Anything that could explain why two otherwise healthy people and a dog had died under such bizarre circumstances? But nothing immediately stood out. No clear answers. Just more questions. The air around this case felt heavy. There was no clear evidence of foul play, yet the situation itself felt too eerie to be a coincidence. Two people. One house. No witnesses. No immediate cause of death. Just silence, unanswered questions, and a deep sense of unease. No one knew for sure. And that's what made it so terrifying. Timeline of the investigation right from the jump, detectives noted something odd. There was no sign of forced entry. The house wasn't ransacked, no broken windows, no doors kicked in, nothing that screamed home invasion or robbery gone wrong. When the first responders arrived, they found the bodies in a state of significant decomposition. That in itself was heartbreaking because it meant that Jean and Betsy had been there for a while before anyone found them. And then there was this little but very telling detail, an open prescription bottle with scatter pills next to Betsy. Now, that's something you don't just gloss over. Could it have been an accident? Or did someone take their life? Maybe even a case of one spouse passing away and the other not being able to go on without them. All fair questions. But the team needed cold, hard facts. So, they started testing the environment, trying to rule out any external factors. A gas leak. Maybe carbon monoxide poisoning? The New Mexico Gas Company came in to do a thorough check, and while they did find some gas leaking from a stove burner, it was only at 0.33%, not nearly enough to be fatal. Then, they checked out some other potential hazards in the house, like the water heater and the gas log lighters in the fireplaces. While there were code violations, which, let's be real, so many older homes have, none of them seemed lethal. So, the mystery deepened. By the end of that first week, the investigative team had gathered a ton of evidence. They found 2 cell phones, which, let's be honest, are gold mines of information in modern investigations, various medications, Tylenol, and even a 2025 planner. Now, let's pause for a sec. If someone was planning for 2025, does that suggest they weren't expecting anything tragic to happen? Maybe, maybe not. But it's a detail worth noting. One of the most valuable pieces of evidence. Surveillance footage. Investigators traced Betsy's last known movements, which helped put together a partial timeline. On February 11th, she was seen at multiple places. She took their pet to the vet, stopped by Sprouts Farmers Market in the late afternoon, then swung by CVS Pharmacy, and finally made her way back to their gated community a little after 5 p.m. That was the last time she was seen alive on camera. But what about Gene? That's where things got really interesting. His pacemaker data showed something unusual, a sudden abnormal heart rhythm on February 18th. If that's accurate, it means he was still alive for a week after Betsy's presumed death. A week? Can you imagine? Was he aware that she was gone? Was he trying to call for help? Did he even realize what was happening? It's hard not to picture an elderly man, alone in his home, dealing with the unimaginable. Now, the autopsy results gave more insight but still left questions unanswered. The medical examiner noted that both bodies showed similar stages of decomposition, which was strange considering the pacemaker data suggested Jean outlived Betsy by days. And here's another eerie detail: Betsy's face was bloated, and her limbs had started to mummify, which might have been sped up by a space heater found near her body. That's such a haunting image, isn't it? Meanwhile, the team continued to work every possible lead. They combed through Jean and Betsy's emails, trying to find any final messages that could hint at what was going on. The last known email. Betsy had contacted her massage therapist at 11:21 a.m. on February 11th. After that, radio silence. They also pulled surveillance footage from neighboring houses, hoping to spot anything unusual. And because technology is amazing and a little terrifying, they even checked the couple's vehicle's computer systems to see if they had driven anywhere unexpected. Now here's where things got frustrating. This wasn't a case of an obvious crime, and despite how much evidence they were collecting, the truth remained murky. Sheriff Mendoza was committed to keeping everything transparent, constantly updating the public and making it clear that, While foul play didn't seem likely, the case remained open. And the biggest missing piece? The toxicology reports. But those results could take up to 3 months to come back. 3 months. That's an eternity when you're trying to piece together what happened. And then there was the issue of security footage, or rather, the lack of it. The Hackman residence didn't have cameras, so investigators had to rely on the surrounding properties and the gate security system. It wasn't perfect, but it helped reconstruct at least part of their final days. So where does that leave everything? Well, as of now, the investigation is ongoing. It's one of those cases that's just unsettling. No obvious foul play, no clear cause of death, just two people, seemingly healthy enough to be out running errands and making plans for the future, suddenly gone. What if I told you that the FBI just made a chilling announcement that has left Gene Hackman's family absolutely shaken? The medical examiner's report reveals details that no one saw coming, and just when you think you have it figured out. So, what exactly did the FBI uncover? Why is Hackman's family so disturbed? And what does this mean for his legacy? Stick with me, because this story only gets wilder as we go, and trust me, you won't want to miss the jaw-dropping revelation at the very end. Medical examiner's key findings. When Dr. Heather Jarrell, the chief medical examiner, finally revealed the full autopsy report, it painted a heartbreaking picture of their last moments. And honestly, the details are just heavy. So let's start with Gene Hackman, the legendary actor who's been in some of the greatest films of all time. His cause of death was determined to be hypertensive and atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease. That means his heart just couldn't take it anymore. The autopsy showed he had major heart complications, evidence of multiple surgeries, previous heart attacks, and basically, a heart that had been fighting a long, exhausting battle. But that wasn't all. The report also pointed out that Hackman had advanced Alzheimer's disease, and that played a big role in his passing too. Just thinking about that is heartbreaking. And here's something else that stood out. His stomach was empty. That means he hadn't eaten for a while before he died. Now, why is that important? Because it hints at the fact that he may have been weak, disoriented, or even alone in those final moments. It just makes you wonder, was he aware of what was happening? Did he try to call for help? So many questions, and we'll probably never have all the answers. Now here's where things take an even more tragic turn. Betsy Arakawa, his longtime wife, passed away from something totally different, hantavirus pulmonary syndrome. If you're wondering, wait, what in the world is that? You're not alone. It's an extremely rare but deadly infection that spreads through rodent waste. And the scariest part, it can come out of nowhere and take you down fast. According to Dr. Jarrell, hantavirus infections start off with flu-like symptoms like aches, chills, fever, but within just a few days, it gets serious. Breathing problems hit hard, and if you don't get immediate medical help, things can go downhill quickly. And that's exactly what happened to Betsy. Investigators pieced together a timeline, and what they found was chilling. Arakawa's last known activities happened on February 11th, and then silence. No more communication. That's when things started going bad. Given the nature of hantavirus, she likely started feeling sick, thinking it was just a regular flu. But then it escalated, and she collapsed. They found her body on her side in the bathroom, which means she probably went in there feeling weak, maybe trying to get to the sink or toilet, and just never made it back out. That visual alone is heartbreaking. Now here's where it gets even sadder. Gene was still alive at this point. So think about this, his wife had already passed, and he was still in the house. Did he even know? Did he go looking for her? Or was he already too weak and confused from his own condition to realize what had happened? It's just devastating to imagine. One of the key pieces of evidence that helped confirm the timeline was Hackman's pacemaker. Yeah, technology can be eerie sometimes. His device recorded normal heart activity up until February 17th. Then, on February 18th, it showed an irregular rhythm, atrial fibrillation, which basically meant his heart was struggling. And then, silence. No more activity. That was likely the moment he passed away. So if you really think about it, there's a strong chance he spent several days alone, unaware that his wife had already died. That thought alone is enough to make your chest feel heavy. And here's another sad detail. Their main house actually didn't have a high risk of hantavirus exposure. So how did Betsy get infected? Turns out they had other buildings on their property, and those had rodent activity. That means she could have been exposed somewhere else, maybe without even realizing it. And with hantavirus, all it takes is inhaling particles from rodent droppings or urine. It's invisible. You don't even see it coming. After all the investigations and medical findings, one thing was clear: both Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa died of natural causes. At the end of the day, it only reveals how fragile life is. One minute you're here, and the next, everything changes. Gene Hackman's death was already heartbreaking, but now it's downright terrifying. The FBI has officially confirmed the cause, and let's just say, it's not what anyone expected. His family is shaken, the entertainment world is in disbelief, and the truth? It's more unsettling than any role he ever played. Was there foul play? A long-buried secret finally exposed? Or is there something even more chilling lurking beneath the surface? Stay tuned, because the final revelation will leave you speechless. Family's emotional journey. The Hackman sisters never thought they would receive the kind of call that would turn their world upside down. But on that fateful day, when the phone rang, Elizabeth, Leslie, and Annie learned the devastating news that would change everything. Their father's estate in Santa Fe, a place that had always been filled with warmth, laughter, and memories, had now become the setting of a tragedy they never saw coming. At first, they were in complete disbelief. How could this happen? Leslie, in particular, struggled to wrap her head around it. To her, their father had always been strong, vibrant, and in perfect physical condition despite his age. There was no indication that there was any problem, she said over and over, trying to convince herself that there had to be some mistake. But as much as she wanted to hold on to that belief, reality had other plans. The initial shock quickly turned into a desperate search for answers. The family immediately started considering every possible explanation. Maybe it was carbon monoxide poisoning. Maybe there had been a silent leak in the house that no one had noticed. Elizabeth, who had always been the worrier of the three, couldn't shake the fear that something in the home itself had been the cause. Meanwhile, the media had already caught wind of the shocking loss, and before the family could even process their grief, their private tragedy had become a public spectacle. The Office of the Medical Investigator, which normally maintains strict confidentiality, felt compelled to break protocol and issue public statements just to keep the growing speculation under control. Everyone wanted answers. Every news outlet had its theories. Every headline carried some new dramatic spin on what might have happened. It was overwhelming, to say the least. Gene's nephew, Tim Hackman, found himself at the center of the storm, trying to reassure both the press and the family that the toxicology results would reveal the truth. "We're waiting on toxicology. That will tell us everything," he said, hoping to drown out the noise of wild theories and baseless speculation. It's easy to speculate negative theories. The family wants to keep it positive for now, and when we know the truth, we will deal with it.